Hey creators, Aimon here, and this is where I explore my philosophies through video. And today we are talking about the waves of creativity and how creativity can come in huge waves, and it's, you have very low lows and very high highs as an artist. And this is something that I thought I was kind of alone to. I was in this bubble of experiencing this, but the more people I talk to, the more artists that I talk to, turns out a lot of people actually go through this. So if you're a creator or you're an artist, or you're working on any kind of creative project, whether you make money off it or you don't, you might experience this, you might not. You might know someone that experiences this. And so yeah, I'm gonna be discussing a little bit of my experience about it and a couple of ways about how you can maximize the highs of the waves and minimize the lows of the waves. And these are the things that really work and stand out for myself.
They have lost their humanity. They belong to the shadow.
I create a lot of different things of all kinds, but the thing that really sparked this video in particular is that I produce electronic music. And my wave as such, if it was a graph or an actual surfing wave, like it is really, really high highs and really, really low lows. And so I've just gotten off 2 or 3 months of not producing at all. And for a couple of my close friends out there, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about, because I basically told them that I was quitting producing. How dramatic of me. And I kind of did, I did quit for a few months. And the hard thing is, like, you don't really know where it comes from sometimes. Sometimes there's an actual inciting incident where you go, you know what, I need to be spending more time on this thing, I need to be focusing more on this thing. And so you just naturally put something else down, especially if you have a couple of different creative projects. And for example, the video side of it is where I actually get income. I actually make money from the video side of it, so I kind of do have to focus a bit more on that side of it. And the music side is a bit more of a passion, it's a bit more of a hobby. I definitely really enjoy doing it. It's some great downtime, something to do while I'm by myself, to be creative, create something out of nothing. It's really fulfilling. But yeah, over the last year or 2 years, I've had a few times where I'm not doing it for like 4 or 5 months. And then I am doing it for like 3 or 4 months. And when I'm doing it, I'm there and I'm like, yes, and I'm crushing it. And I'm making so much music every single day. And then when I'm not, I'm just not, and I'm flat and I'm not making music at all. And my vibe's a little bit lower. And sometimes it's hard to pinpoint. Sometimes it's hard to recognize. You don't really know what's happening until you're kind of like a few months in and something happens. Like, for example, this happened to me last year. A big artist that I love and respect played one of my songs while I was actually in the audience. And it just hit me right in the face that I was like, what am I doing? This is something that I'm good at. This is something that I like. This is something that fills me with joy, and it's creative. I get to express myself, and I'm not doing it. And I haven't been doing it for a few months. And that really just killed my vibe, And I immediately, that was the thing that kind of sparked the wave going up again. And then I was crushing it for a few months. I made music every single day, and it was really fulfilling. And then I couldn't tell you what it was after that, but I just kind of dipped off and I started focusing more on video, focusing on hanging out with friends. Life gets in the way, whatever it may be. There's so many different things that can happen for your wave to go up and down. And this is what we're talking about today, because I found a couple of ways to minimize the lows of that wave and maximize the highs of the wave. So if you're ready, let's jump into it. So we'll start with avoiding the lows of the wave to start with, because I think maximizing the highs can be a little bit easier if you're already riding that wave, So to minimize some of the lows, like one of the main things is obviously, having those creative goals. Like, what is it that you want to achieve? Do you have a key performance indicator? Like, do you want to actually produce one song every single week? And depending on your time schedule, you want to make it something that's quite manageable, So for example, myself, I want to finish a complete song once every 2 weeks and at least start a couple of different ideas, So if you're looking at your diary or, your digital diary, whatever it may be, that you keep track of these different things, you have a look at it every day, just keep in check with yourself. Like, have you started that thing this week? Have you started that thing in this fortnight, or whatever your goal is, whatever your time goal is, are you on track to finish that one song for the month, So the second huge thing that has been really effective for myself is that, you may not be in a mood to be creative, but something that I've noticed that's been huge is that when I don't do it for a long period of time, when I do start to do it again, because I haven't been doing it daily, I'm out of the habit, so I'm not as quick, I'm not as efficient, I'm not in such a zone where I'm just crushing out exactly what I need to be doing, and that slows everything down quite a bit. So I find that in the lows when I'm not doing it, I still use the program that I use, which is Ableton, for my filmmaking, so I am getting a little bit of practice. So this tip is really to just jump into the thing that you're doing every single day. There's a lot of data coming out about, having micro habits, doing the 1%, and it could just be opening the project, putting in a bass hit, or whatever your creative project is, whether it's opening a book to write a sentence down, just looking at the book, whatever it is, like taking the first step. And do not even have the intention to take the next few steps. Just literally open it. You might want to organize some samples if you're producing. Just organize something, organize your thoughts, whatever your creative project is. Take the first step. And, sometimes it flows and you keep going, and you make something amazing out of nothing that you just did not even expect. And that can be where a lot of my magic actually comes from. That can be where sometimes the wave begins to go up again, But just when you find that downtime, when you have that little bit of time, go, you know what? I'm going to open the project, I'm going to take the first step, and do not even have the intention to take the next step. And if you're in the mood, then keep going. But if not, it just gets your body into the rhythm of having the habit so that you are going to do that thing more often. And as I said, sometimes magic comes from it. Sometimes you take the next step, but sometimes it just helps you remember what it is that you're doing, so that when the wave is high again, and when you're riding this wave and it's up, then when you get into it, there's way less roadblocks in the way. I don't know why I'm using the roadblock analogy, because the waves aren't really on the road. Look, man, you got to come up with your own analogies, okay? This is just what works for me, all right? And so taking that first step can really, take away a lot of these roadblocks and make it easier for when you are on the up, on the high of the artist's life, and you're smashing stuff out, because all these little things, they feel much more natural and much more second nature for you. So another thing, and I'm making a whole video about this coming out very soon, is have creative friends. The first thing is they can keep you accountable. It's like, what have you done this week? And that can kind of inspire you, whether it's in a competitive way or in a fun way, to do the thing that you're doing. I have a lot of music producer friends, and I go over their house, and if they have been making music, then I'll be like, oh, what am I doing? I want to make music, Or you'll be hanging out with them and they'll be creating, and you'll be creating with them, and that will inspire you to keep going, That will inspire the wave to go back up again. Sometimes it will just be a short wave and you'll go up and down, but sometimes it will spark the wave to go all the way up, So it's having those creative friends, having those friends that you can actually create with, or just see what they're doing, bounce ideas off each other. And that's been really one of the hugest things, especially when I'm in my low points, because they might just ask me a question like, what is it? Like, why aren't you producing right now? Why aren't you doing that thing right now? And you might be on the low of the low, not even realize that you are there. And them just asking you the question might spark the realization that you don't know why you haven't been doing that thing. You just fell out of the habit of it because life got in the way or whatever it is. And that could be the day that you take that first step. And that could be the day that you take the second, third, and then 10th step, and then you make a whole song, or you write a whole diary, So life has so many variables, and depending on the level of commitment to your project, you might have so many other things going on that you just forget, It just falls by the wayside, just for a second, but then it stays there for a little bit longer than you would have liked. So they're my three main things to get out of the lows of the wave of creativity. And, let me know if you somehow consistently magically stay up, because I would love to know what your thoughts are, how you stay on the high of creativity. Sometimes you're forced into creativity, whether it's through your job or whatever it is, and that can be a really great way. It's a forcing function, as Dr. Benjamin Hardy would say. And before we get into the highs, something that I've seen recently that's been really inspiring to myself is a lot of bigger artists, a lot of, music producers, for example, for myself, they're coming out and saying how this does affect them. Chances are, if you are an artist, you feel the need to express yourself. If you're creative, you feel the need to, use your emotions and create something out of nothing, put it out into the world. Whether or not you're actually putting it out into the world, or you're just creating it for yourself, for the act of actual expression, chances are you are the type of person, that has a lot of different thoughts than potentially a more logic-driven person. Perhaps you are a little bit more emotional, and I can vouch for this myself. But recently I've seen quite a few posts from larger artists that are coming out saying, that, huge artists like Porter Robinson and stuff like that, and they just say that, I haven't made any good music in the last 5 years and I've been really depressed. And so that's a great example of how the wave can just be so low. And this is even coming from people that have huge achievements, people that have already made it as such, people that are millionaires off their craft, people that are crushing it. doing worldwide tours, and they're coming out and saying that they've been on the low of the wave for 5 years and they feel depressed, they feel they're not making anything great. So that's the perfect example of, you're not alone, like everyone goes through this, and that's really important to remember, I feel. So jumping into the highs. Now, as I said, this is a little bit easier to kind of maintain some of the highs when you're up on that high of the wave. And sorry if this wave analogy is getting a little bit boring, but this is the best way that I kind of picture it in my mind. It's like a graph. So there you are, you're out in the surf, you jump up on the surfboard, you've caught a wave and it's going, and you wonder how long you're going to ride that wave for. And so here's a few things that have helped me continue crushing it when I'm on that high of the wave. So obviously you can integrate some of the things that I mentioned from the lows of the wave, but also on the highs, like something that's really important, especially for myself, and I mentioned this in a previous video, is to have very drastically different experience. A lot of the time when you're creating something, you're actually drawing inspiration from something else, and generally it's an experience. So if you're being caught in your own habits and maybe you're doing something for a little bit too long, you haven't had any crazy different experiences, me creating at a very high pace is that I make sure I have variation in the things that I'm actually creating. So I have a podcast and I also have a YouTube channel, obviously. And so when I'm making music, like I make sure that I schedule time into my day to not only hang out with creative friends, but also make a podcast, which allows me to meet someone else that's a little bit creative or doing something amazing. That bounces inspiration off myself as well. But then also make something for YouTube, make something for a client, and then when I have that time, I jump back in because I'm on this big creative vibe. Then when I'm making music, it's so much easier. So a lot of the times I realize that I am having very varied experience when I'm doing my best creating. So I've just gotten back from a 3-day music festival where I'm inspired by a lot of different artists, or I've just gotten back from an overseas trip where I'm inspired by seeing a lot of different things, and I'll just jump straight into whatever project that I was keen to work on. And this is a huge trigger for me to just dive in and crush out a lot of creative work. Having that very varied experience, is going to lead you to express yourself creatively really well. So another thing that really does help me is obviously, being surrounded by people that have positive energy, that people that are creative. Now I mentioned this when you're on your lows as well, but this really does help you when you're on your highs as well. So when you're on the big wave and you're on the up, and you're crushing out a lot of content, you're making a lot of really cool stuff, spending time with people that reflect the same values as you, and spending time with people that are also creative and also on the up is going to really advantage you, because it's going to keep you inspired for a longer period of time. Another huge thing is health and fitness. Now, I get it, super boring. We're here for a creative video, Aimon, talk about the creative stuff, but this is really important, because if you're not healthy and you're not getting sun and you're not getting water and you're not going to the gym, you're not exercising, then there's just no way that you're going to be performing at your best, and you're not going to have that clarity where you're creating at your best. Something else that's really important to myself is learning. So I might have a lot of creative projects, but I also like learning about different things like marketing and business books and a lot of different audiobooks, and a lot of these kind of things really help me. So these are a few things that really help me on my creative journey, whether I'm not creating much in a particular project or whether I am creating a lot in a particular project. There's a lot of varying different factors that come into play here, because as I mentioned, life's really complicated, and especially if you're a creative person, chances are you're a little bit more of an emotional person as well, and you think about things a little bit too much, potentially. Some of you are nodding, I know, because I've been that person nodding at a screen, and that's why I'm probably creating right now. Yeah, that's another thing is, watching like watching and consuming content from people that are really creative, that do inspire you. You know, Peter McKinnon, there's a lot of different people on the internet that I like to watch. Sometimes I'll just watch a video of theirs on YouTube or something, and it will immediately inspire me to quit out of Chrome and just jump into a creative project, you know? And so that's another form of kind of surrounding yourself with people that are doing the thing that you want to do, because you may not have a lot of immediately accessible and available friends that are creative, right? So, you know, making sure that you are learning and watching people, you know, potential mentors that you are paying attention to that are doing the things that you want to be doing can inspire you to take the action. And, you know, a huge part of this is just remembering that creating is fun and creating is fulfilling. When you create something out of nothing, whether a lot of people subjectively perceive it to be bad, even if you subjectively perceive it to be bad, something I'm really trying to do recently is just jam. And again, this is in the music context, but it's like, more often than not, my brain's like, you know what, you have to produce something, you have to create something that is permanent and then you can release or whatever. But a lot of the time, when I'm not in the mood to do that, I'll just open up my program and just have a bit of a jam session, and it doesn't become anything, you know, but I really enjoy that hour or 2 hours, and just that fills me with more energy and more creativity. And ultimately, that's what we're doing it for, right? Is that we want to have fun, we want to create things. And yeah, you know, your mind might get in the way and compare yourself to a lot of different people, and it's like, I'm not doing what that person's doing, I'm not doing what that person's doing, but really, everyone's on their own complete individual journey, and there's no way you're going to be that person, and that person is on their own journey, and they're struggling with their different things, and they have highs and lows of creativity as well, I guarantee it. And so, you know, the main thing is, like, are you having fun creating? And if you're not, then something's wrong. You need to change your environment, perhaps. So I hope you've picked up a couple of tips for maximizing the highs of the wave of creativity and minimizing the lows of the wave of creativity. And if you have anything that I've missed, I would love to hear about it. So make sure to pop them in the description. And I'm gonna steal my friend Dan's Tube saying, give that like button a little tickle for me, because you know, it really helps my creative wave, you know? And that's what I'm here for, okay? To steal vibes from you. Okay, what am I doing with my life? Thank you so much for watching this video. This has been something that's really important to myself, and I can't wait to look back on this in a year's time and go, hey, that guy's right. You know what? That guy knows what he's talking about. Because more often than not, when I make a video and I look back on it, I'm in a low, or you know, I'm doing the opposite of what it is that I'm talking about. So this is for you, future Aimon, but also anyone else who gets value out of it. That's awesome. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video, guys.